My name is Patricia McGregor, and I am very blessed and honored to be the artistic director of New York Theater Workshop. I've got to call the names of Jim and Linda into the room because I follow in very mighty footsteps, and those mighty footsteps, those beloved footsteps of Jim and Linda, knew that artists who had the incredible platform of New York City needed something else. They needed to go away and retreat and work and be nourished by the woods and each other. And they thought, what better place than Dartmouth, where they are surrounded by woods and humans and support. And so I am the inheritor of a mighty legacy. And that means that I get to say some important yeses. I think a lot about the responsibility and the opportunity of this role. And that means that sometimes you sit on East 4th Street at a place called Mono Mono, and Britton says, I have this dream inside of me. And you know you have the resources, thanks to the Hopkins Center, thanks to Dartmouth, thanks to my incredible staff who love artists and supporting their work, thanks to Maya Cholden, who is our managing director, Kelly Fowler-Hunter, who is both a Dartmouth alumni and a trustee of both the Hopkins Center and New York Theater Workshop, who make sure that there is space so that a dream inside of an artist like that can have air to breathe. So just, I end my nights with my children saying, what are we grateful for and what do we wish? I'm grateful for everyone here to make the space. Oh no, I've embarrassed him now. His wish is gonna be, I wish you never said that, Mom. Okay, I take that on. My wish was not only to say yes to Britton, and Satchel and that work, but also the generative artists for Nightbird. So I would love right now if Lynn Nottage and Nona Hendryx would join for a conversation. I feel like these incredible ladies do not need an introduction, but in case, here are a couple of the highlights. Lynn is the first woman in history to win 2 Pulitzer Prizes for drama. Arguably most well known for pieces like Intimate Apparel, MJ the Musical on Broadway, Clyde's on Broadway, Sweat, Ruin, the list goes on and on. Legend. Speaking of legends, Nona Hendryx, she doesn't follow music's timeline, she rewrites it. A founding member of LaBelle, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1999, she co-created 3 gold albums and the worldwide platinum phenomenon, Lady Marmalade. She is currently a Roth visiting scholar at Dartmouth College. I will say there was a special thread to me when I realized among all of the incredible artists we were going to have both Britton innovating a new piece with some of the most revolutionary innovators that I know. So I'm so glad to have you all here.
Thank you.
And I want to start with, you all are incredible storytellers, and we're going to move into telling the story of a musical. But I want to start with, when did you decide to be a storyteller? When did that kind of penny drop or that light that made you know, this is what I want to do with my life?
Thank you. Before I answer that question, I just want to offer some gratitude to New York Theater Workshop, to you, Patricia, to the Hop, and to Dartmouth College, just for providing this wonderful space and allowing us to develop a new musical, which is really in its nascent place right now. And I have to say, I'm still in all of my feelings, Britton. I was like, I have to talk up here, and I'm still like processing that beautiful song. So yes. Thank you for that.
Yes, yes.
And which is a segue very much into where did I begin as a storyteller? And it wasn't salmon croquettes, but it was fish cakes. And as I get older, I realize I have 2 origin stories. One is with my grandmother, who was a great raconteur. I mean, this woman was extraordinary. And not only was she a good storyteller, but she also understood audience. And very often, I was that audience. And I never didn't want to not go to my grandmother's house because I knew that I'd have an hour or two in which she would just tell me these funny and witty stories that I could hear time and time again. So I think that that's one place where my storytelling began. But I think the other place, more importantly, was my kitchen table. My mother was a school teacher, and after school, I'd come home, and there'd always be a collection of these black women who were sitting around this orange formica table, and they were school teachers and civil servants, and they'd take their shoes off, and my mother always had this huge gallon of Mondavi wine that was set on the table, and over the course of 2 hours, they would drain that jug dry, but they'd also tell stories, and they would tell stories that were heartbreaking, they would tell stories that were funny, and I always did my homework at that table just listening to them. And I realize now that that was the first place where I encountered theater, is that they were entertaining each other, and they were entertaining me, so I think that that's where my storytelling DNA really begins.
Love it. Thank you for that. Nona?
I'm not totally sure, but I always, I loved poetry as a child and loved reading and loved wondering and was very curious. And my English teacher, Mrs. Dinkins, she was my English teacher in junior high and also in senior before I left to become an artist. She discovered my love of poetry, and so she began to encourage me to explore and read all the poets. Shakespeare, I just loved the capturing of humanity and the telling of stories, and Tennyson, Williams, all of those poets. And I think that's where the spark was lit inside of me, that the things that I was thinking about and wondering about, and I think I was already writing poetry, but it just really opened me up to a world of poets. And then I discovered people like James Baldwin and other poets later on who became friends like Nikki Giovanni and many others. But I think that was Mrs. Dinkins was really the key to my storytelling.
I love that you've both named a variety of forms, from poetry to novels to the kind of storytelling that happens around a kitchen table. This week, you were working on a particular storytelling form, which is musicals. And I often say the American musical is one of the most iconic storytelling forms, and the arc towards a thing that is just out of reach that you might only get by singing a song feels like a really worthy exploration and a very particular container. So can you talk a little bit about, as you thought about this story, maybe we'll start with Nona as it started with you, why did you decide a musical is the way that you wanted to embody this? And we'll start with that.
I wanted to be able to tell the real story of LaBelle. And the real story of LaBelle is a musical story, because that's how we knew each other, how we lived together, how we had dinner, how we had, it was our lives was a musical life. And I didn't want to actually do a musical, I wanted to do a rock opera, because that's what we were and are in our music as LaBelle. So, every time we'd say musical, I go, no, it's a rock opera.
Ooh, I stand corrected, y'all. It's a rock opera. It's a rock opera.
I don't know, but it's musicalized.
No, it's actually an important distinction, and I love that energy behind
Yes.
it. Yes.
So, and I think that it was really important to tell the story that as I look back on it now and discovering it with the writing and creating it with Lynn, that it changed how women or young or girl groups were. There was LaBelle, and then there was after LaBelle. Right? So
yes.
And I didn't really feel the impact of that until we were writing and putting it on page, like, oh, and then we owe, right? So I think it's important that it's musical because that's how we communicated with people, how we engaged with people was through our songs, through our music, through our performance, and really had a relationship with an audience.
One of the things I love about the piece is it explores all the moments where it almost could have not happened. To a certain degree, it feels inevitable now. Of course you all came and changed the world and then changed everyone afterwards. But part of what I love is that it shows the underbelly of that and what it took and how it was a constant choice to move forward. Lynn, speaking of moving forward, the book of a musical is part of what moves us forward, and you have incredible experience both with MJ, Imitation of Life. You are a person who is known for doing plays that often have music in them but are not necessarily musicals or rock operas, and then also leaning into this form. I'm curious for you, what excited you most about telling this story with Nona and telling it in the rock opera / musical form?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a beautiful question for me because I've had time to really unpack. Like, what was it that drew me to telling this particular story? And I think it really begins when I was young. I still have such a vivid memory of turning on like our little black and white television with pliers and then adjusting the picture with the hanger, and on would come like Don Kirshner's rock concert. And I don't know whether it was even Don Kirshner's, but I still remember the very first time that I saw LaBelle in silver lame on television, and this whole incredible world of possibility opened up for me. Because understand, this was still a moment when seeing any black women on television was revelatory, but to see 3 black women who were Afrofuturists, who were just defying the notions of who we could be was extraordinary.
Yes,
And
yes.
so when I think back to like, where did this process begin? It began with like this little window to my imagination being opened up. And then I got this incredible invitation to collaborate with Nona Hendryx. And I have to say, and I don't want to, get choked up, but we've spent the last year and a half in a room together. And what's been extraordinary is not just hearing the remarkable stories of this revolutionary rock band, LaBelle, but witnessing this extraordinary woman who continues to innovate and create and be generative in the ways that she was, in the 1970s. And I find it incredibly inspirational. So when I'm sitting down to write this book, I am trying to honor sort of not just Nona, but the entire legacy of LaBelle, and also that feeling that I had as a child experiencing the music for the first time.
Incredible, incredible. I'm going to ask one last question, and then I'm going to open it up to some questions. My last question is, well, I'll give one piece of information and then a question. To your point of Nona continuing to work, I was very lucky, maybe 10 years ago or so, to assist on this Fela show that Patti LaBelle was in, and one night I went up to help coach the thing, and it was Patti and Nona cooking dinner for everyone for the next day. And these legends, these incredible legends, making sure that everyone at the theater who had to work on a holiday was still okay. And one of the phrases was, "We never stop cooking. We never stop cooking." And it was I'll never forget that. It was like very symbolic. So you all are in the kitchen right now cooking.
Yes, we are.
Can you talk a little bit about what is at the heart of what you're cooking this week? Because one of the things that's so special, and we're so grateful to the theater department, to Dartmouth, to everyone for allowing a kitchen that allows for the experimentation to happen as you cook up this new musical. So what's at the heart of what you are experimenting with right now?
We're experimenting with hearing the story off of the page that we've been writing it down on, and having people, the wonderful actors who've come, here to be to fulfill the story, and the musicians, Jason and Etienne, to give us the color underneath in terms of the music, and also to have the time to go back and forth with each other, going, you know, well, maybe take that out, or keep this in, or change this. I mean, that's very, and thank you, Mary Lou, thank you, Dartmouth, thank you to the Hopkins Center for welcoming me the way you have over this last year. It has been amazing. You're just wonderful people. And thank you to the students who've been
Yes,
absolutely lovely as
the
well.
students.
And the staff here. Jason, take a bow. Yeah. And Samantha, I mean, just a wonderful group of people who've been so supportive. And I think what has made it so comfortable for me and actually allowed me to feel extremely emotional being here is the time that I've been here before. I feel like it's home where I can, you know, I don't cry. I don't. But today, I'm still emotional from what we read today, or what the actors read, and how it moved me about the story that we want to tell, which is the truth. Because it's not a story that people know, and it needed to be the truth. So that's what we've been discovering. And doing.
Amazing.
Yeah, and if I can add, I mean, I think one of the extraordinary things about making a musical is that it's made in the room. Unlike many of the other forms, is that it's purely collaborative, and you need all of these ingredients to complete it, and it's very difficult, particularly in our lives in New York, to find the time, to find the resources, and to find the space in which we can invite all of the other collaborators into a space and just experiment and play and make mistakes. And so that's what we're doing here, is just trying to figure out what is this and how does it live, you know, in the mouths of others.
Amazing.
And thank you, Patricia.
Oh,
and New York Theater Workshop.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you so much.
Oh, what an honor. What an honor. I mean it when I say it's a deep privilege to be able to be in conversation with such incredible artists. And I always have a million questions, but I thought it would be a good opportunity to open it up to you all for any questions that you all might have before we go into our closing song. So if there are no questions, I'll ask a couple more questions. But if there's anything bubbling up that you think, well, while I've got Lynn and Nona here, let me ask. Yes, yes.
Hi. First of all, thank you guys both for coming. I'm one of the Theater 65 class.
Hey.
Hey. So it's been super amazing to be in the room with you both. My question is, because you are working with real-life materials and real-life memories, how do you balance that with the constraints of it's a musical, it's got a time limits, and you're condensing so many years of your life?
That's a question for me? Yes, okay. I don't know how, because I've never created a musical in the sense of what theater thinks a musical is. I have different thoughts about what a musical is, so it could go on for, 10 minutes or for 10 hours. It's very difficult. But I am lucky I get to work with Lynn Nottage, who actually does know, and actually says, stop repeating, don't repeat, that's too many repeats. And so it's been really helpful for me to be able to have the moments that were really, really important in our lives shared, and then, not get into things that would take people too deeply and maybe take them away from really what the story is about. Because I'm being in my feelings and in my moment, It's more about the story and being able to share that with people and not become like some sort of diary that they have to read.
Yeah, and if I can add something, because one of my mantras is don't repeat, don't repeat. But repetition became really important in terms of developing this piece, because I did a lot of active listening to the stories that Nona was telling, and the stories that I heard time and time again were the stories that I began to realize were the stories that were going to shape and become central and an organizing principle for this piece.
And I'll say one of the great privileges of having space like this to work and experiment. And then I hope you all join us on Saturday, because Saturday is also a place where there's the work between the core generative artists, there's the work with the core collaborators in the room, and then there's that thing that happens when an audience comes in and you feel the audience watching a piece, and that calibration helps teach you how to tune the instrument of the work. One of my favorite, George C. Wolfe often says, I never believe any individual person, but I always believe the audience. So after this incredible week of work, we'll be able to sit back and watch the audience watch and feel the piece, and then have more information for the next round of work. One more question before we go into our, yes?
What do you two feel was the major characteristic that Patti LaBelle had that allowed her to move into the genre and get the acclaim for her artistry that she had? I would think you would know that more than anyone.
Her voice, a unique instrument in this world, and her willingness to share it with abandon. How she would tell the story in her own way, but not just singing it, but physically engaging with the stage, with you, with the audience, with the song. And she's one of those people who would eat the stage. Yes.
Patti had one of my favorite combinations, which is virtuosity and accessibility, which meant her voice was singular, and yet, even in a stadium with thousands of people, I feel like she made people feel welcome. There was a kind of welcome to her that was really incredible. Speaking of welcome, y'all, I almost choked up too on that song. I've got to be honest. I'm going to bring back Britton, but before I do, I want to have us give a huge round of applause to Lynn Nottage and Nona Hendryx.